And welcome back.
Welcome back. This is Kareem.
And this is Travis.
And this is One Hit.
High Points.
All right. So basically, we're back with another episode. I know the episode previous, we were discussing like the journey of my nose and going to Turkey and gaining perspective and still being aware of the ongoing genocide. But today we're going to talk about something that's pretty kind of just like in your face terrorism. And that is the, explosives that were implanted in the pagers that people in Lebanon were using, whether it was members of Hezbollah, whether it was just regular civilians, doctors, nurses.
Children.
What?
Children was affected, in some aspects.
Well,
right?
children were affected, but we're talking about like the people using the pagers, right? Because we're seeing this right now. There are people. So for like Israel took ownership for it already. Like they're boasting about it. Like we have Zionists that are all over social media laughing, boasting. They're making memes about it. I mean, Israeli society is basically taking ownership for it. I mean, the IDF is taking ownership for it. The U.S. is claiming that they had no idea that this was like an attack that was going to happen. But this is like full-blown terrorism, right? So these explosives were basically planted in these pagers that members of Hezbollah had ordered.
Do we know that for sure, though? And I'm only questioning more because I read something earlier today that, and I might not just be caught up to everything at the moment, but more of that, there was like 3 different possibilities on where the devices were physically tampered with, or if it was more of a remote call to them to actually overheat the batteries, and the batteries themselves were the pieces that were exploding. Do we know the actual
There's more. I don't think we do 100%. I think because the ongoing explosions are still happening right now. We're on day 2 and their explosions are still happening. So
with a completely different set of devices today. Today was a bunch of walkie talkies. Yesterday was a bunch of pagers.
Right. So what I think the premise of this episode right now is really discussing the one-sided gross reporting and misreporting, purposeful misreporting that we have on mainstream media, where this is like the definition of an act of terrorism. I mean you have basically these explosives or devices that are exploding, and without a single care that these people who are using these devices, whether they are members of Hezbollah and or doctors, nurses, or whatever, people within society, like these are explosives. There are people that are going to be walking within society. Israel does not even care where these people will be, whether they're in a grocery store, whether they're in a hospital, whether they're in a doctor's office, whether they're at home, whether they're around just people. Women, children, civilians, innocent people. And the fact that the IDF and like Israel is taking ownership and boasting about this as if this wasn't like a complete direct form of terrorism, like severe terrorism, a terrifying form of it. Because what people don't understand is this is something that sets a new precedent for what now other countries are allowed to just do. And like, oh, this is what we're allowed to do. Like, we're allowed to do the same thing. This is something that international law is not necessarily like international law. Obviously, this is against it. Like, this is clearly breaching international law. But I think at this point, with how Israel's not been held accountable, at least like on anything, really, America has not, stopped the funding, has stopped arming them, stopped pretty much just giving a full green light to do all these things. And any single time there's a resolution being passed, the U.S. vetoes it as if they're never going to not veto it, And I think at this point, every single country is looking at international law and the United Nations fall because of Israel. Israel's bringing the world down. Israel's basically showing that the world is lawless, and this is just actually the law of the jungle. And with the precedent that's set by having active terrorism like this, it is only bringing and boasting for a broader regional war. And if people are not afraid, if people are acting like this still doesn't affect them, then you're a moron. You are a fucking moron. And I'm not taking back my words. I don't even care anymore to be PC and be about the middleman. Absolutely not. I think if you are just that person in the middle, that's how things don't get fucking done. That's how things become stagnant and until the evil comes onto your doorstep and then you cry victim, like, how can this happen? It's because of you. It starts with you being a fucking idiot and not looking around you and waking the fuck up to say, how am I being inactive in this? How am I being part of the problem to this? You have to ask yourself, if these things are happening and they don't repulse you, that's part of the conditioning, that's part of the brainwashing that has allowed you to believe that you can live in your little bubble and act like this is not going to happen on your doorstep. Okay, we have cell phones, we have other devices as well, we have AirPods, we have you
Yeah,
know,
and every one of them could possibly be the next target
iPads,
or whatever.
laptops.
That little vulnerability is exactly what they just showed the world, that it's every one of us and every little piece of device that we have, and there's electronics around us that has batteries in it left and right.
Israel just showed their surveillance capabilities, security surveillance, and technological capabilities. I mean, this is like something that they've basically boasted about years ago, and always talk about how they're like the number one security surveillance technological developmental state in the world right now. And I think that's really funny, and it kind of goes against the narrative that I can't believe Hamas, it was just a security failure, security breach. Oh no, they knew it was going to happen. They had a stand down order for 6 hours. People in paragliders. Okay, Hamas and paragliders cannot have created the devastation that was caused. It was clearly by the IDF, who had the orders to kill any hostages being taken, and they just were destroying and bombing through Apache helicopters, through tanks. And we have Jewish witnesses that can testify that this is very much the case. Hostages that can testify this is very much the case. And we have that footage that was released, and it's not put on mainstream media. It's not talked about. Every human rights organization, the ICC, ICJ, United Nations, all have debunked every single lie and claim made by Israel in order to allow that propaganda to justify to the American people or any brainwashed sheep that they can go ahead and do whatever and commit every crime against humanity, only for all these lies to have been debunked. And actually, the irony is, the gross irony, which no one is surprised by this, who's been aware of Israel and the Zionist regime's evil from the very beginning, that every single accusation is an admission of guilt on their own front of what they're doing. Okay, they're beheading babies literally with bombs. They're raping Palestinian hostages. They're unhinged. They're creating all this terrorism and just escalating and escalating and escalating. And they want to drag in Americans for a broader regional war. They want Americans to die for their orchestrated wars because they want to expand the greater Israel. And if anyone says I'm a conspiracy theorist or calls me out anything, I'm proud. Call me whatever name, because I am proud to stand strong and true in the face of evil and lies and wickedness.
Well, it's only a conspiracy if it's somewhat borderline true or some being hidden or covered up.
Conspiracy,
no one would have a conspiracy theory over the truth.
Listen,
like the full truth.
That word, or that meant to be insult, all right, and meant to be devaluing of someone with credibility, was created by the CIA, right? It was meant to call someone a conspiracy theorist. And as I read Chaos by Tom O'Neill, thanks to Candace Owens with a recommendation, I've basically put the pieces together of things I've always known, but I have an even more refined understanding of it. And now whenever I get called conspiracy theorist, like Candace Owens says, it makes me very proud, because it's basically saying, you're afraid that I know a lot. You're afraid that I am not a sheep. You're afraid that I can challenge your fucking lies and your propagandized narratives. And at this point in real time, knowing that there's more explosives killing innocent people in Lebanon, a sovereign state, this is not Hamas in just a small sector of Palestine at large. This is actually a sovereign state, backed by Iran, backed by, a lot of countries. I mean, I'm not going to list that Russia, China are also involved directly, but I mean, if you think about how many countries hate America right now, if there's a full regional war, you best believe that a lot of countries who have been hating on America for decades will not be afraid to attack us when we're in our most vulnerable state because of Israel. And if people who actually are pro-America, who love America and say America first, if this doesn't scare you, outrage you, and make you repulsed, then I don't know what will. Will you have to see your own family members, friends, and neighbors have to die in front of you to actually care at this point? Or do you think you can still turn on your blinders, look away, and only see what you see on social media, only just to be like, oh, it doesn't affect me? No, there's no more of that excuse. We're about to be on the brink of World War III, and I'm sick and tired of these bullshit elections that are meant to divide Americans and pick teams like their football teams and just to go at each other. We're dealing with true, ugly, evil, vile terrorism committed by the state of Israel, the terrorist state of Israel, and there's no more defense for Israel. You can compare articles of the U.S. Reporting versus pretty much any country around the world, and you'll see a complete downplaying and washing of actual facts and actual proof of what occurs. Okay, even Israel reports their own crimes factually for the most part. They even boast about it proudly. And then you have the U.S. downplaying, oh, explosion occurred in Lebanon, killing this many, injuring that. How about no? Orchestrated terrorist attack by Israel, murdered so and so. Like, we don't hear that. We don't hear the factual information. Like, if Israel's saying that, yes, that we are taking ownership for our cyber attack on Lebanon, and they're happy about it and showing to the world their power and capabilities, why can't, New York Times, a Washington Post, CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, CBS, the BBC, Sky News, whatever, why are they all washing this as if this was just like an explosion that occurred? Oh, we don't know how this happened. Just an explosion occurred.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. And the time for people to wake the fuck up is now. Because again, I care about my friends, family, neighbors. I love America. I love Americans. You guys are my family, friends. You're everything to me. This is all I know. But when I say it's all I know, it's because I care about how this country is falling and how we're being misled by our evil political leaders who are bought by the Zionist regime. I care enough about us to say, stop fighting, stop with the division, wake up and realize that we're part of the same team, and we should be against the evil system that is meant to divide us. Okay, and I also care about what we do and where our tax money goes. I care about what we're funding. I don't want to be funding murder and genocide and holocausts of ethnic groups. I don't want to be doing that. I think that we should be putting money back into America, helping Americans, and when we have the capabilities to help other countries, we can do so in the right way, not bombing them and claiming it's democracy.
It should be done in a very humanitarian way, is what you're really saying. Like, let's help countries, where they need it, with helping them find jobs, food, health care, whatever the case might be, not funding military operations and devastating lives.
Yeah, October 7th very much showed blatantly that the American dream is not real. Democracy is a facade, and that we think that just because we have a voting system and we can vote, somehow the same evils that continue to become the only candidates that are in office that we can vote for. We have this false sense of democracy because we're comparing it to these what is that called again? Like totalitarian states?
Dictatorships?
Yeah, but dictatorships, but that, I was trying to use a different word. But yeah, we have...
Authoritative?
Yes, yes, whatever. We have those types of countries or states that we compare our version of democracy with to theirs. And we try to play it off as if, like, look how democratic we are, blah, 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 as we carpet bomb all these, countries. We're not democratic if we are not having a party for the people that listen to the people. Okay, if you have 68% of Americans that say they want a ceasefire in Gaza and they don't want to be funding any more arms shipments to Israel.
Of those were 68% of the people that actually speak up. So we would assume that number would be much higher.
Yes, exactly. If you have the majority of Americans saying they don't want to be funding these foreign wars anymore and they want a ceasefire in Israel and Gaza, they want enough, they want an end to this, you can't have politicians that you're about to elect basically, kissing ass to the world to show the Zionist regime who loves Israel more. I mean, you have Trump and Kamala being like, I love Israel. No, I love Israel. No, you hate Israel. No, you hate Israel. What are we doing here? Is this America or is this Israel? Because last I checked, this is America, and we are not the United States of Israel. Put the American people first. The American people want an end to this. There's no, we're working around the clock to secure a deal. You can end this by putting an arms embargo to Israel. And I promise you, when one side has a fucking army, the top four most powerful armies and technological advanced capabilities in the world versus a small resistance group, freedom fighter group, because that's exactly what they are. I don't care what anyone says. In every single form of art and cinema, we see a small resistance group labeled as terrorists by the empire, by the evil, superpower. And right now, that's what we're seeing. And that's why a lot of people are waking up and seeing the shift that, yes, maybe some things may be deemed as terrorism. And yes, I don't agree with violence of any kind, and I hate it. But you know what? I believe in resistance against violent occupiers. I believe in slaves fighting back at their slave owners. I believe in that if my family was killed or I was bombed relentlessly, I would be in the same position to fight back. And that's how exactly I'm seeing Hamas. It's how I'm seeing every single resistance group created in the Middle East by the bombing campaigns and the industrial war complex and the war machine created by the US and Israel. I don't care. Put yourself in their shoes. That's how I'm seeing it. I'm a human being with empathy. I'm not a selective empath, and selective empathy is the problem. I care about Jewish people. I care about innocent lives of all kind. I want Semitic people to live together and worship in peace. This has never been about Palestinians versus Jews. This is about Zionism versus the world at this point. If you have an overwhelming amount of Jews in this country now at this point speaking out and saying not in our names, we don't want this, stop. Why do you have political evil Zionist leaders that are claiming to do things in the name of Jews and claiming to do things that are supposed to protect them? Mm-hmm. You're fear-mongering Jewish people and saying that the only place that's safe for you is on this land, on the backs and sacrifices of Palestinians and their freedoms and their liberations and their self-determination. That's not going to make any Jewish person safe throughout the world. In fact, I would say right now what Israel's doing is making Jews very unsafe throughout the world, and it's also making Palestinians and Arabs and Middle Easterns at large unsafe throughout the world. Because you have opposing sides. You still have a small minority of hatred, and that hatred will act with violence. As we've seen in the U.S., 6-year-old Palestinian stabbed to death, a 3-year-old attempted to be drowned in Texas, and there was multiple attacks in Texas. I'm not going to label or reference everything right now. I'm just overwhelmed by how there's times where I try to meditate and breathe and pray and just try to find peace in aspects of life where I think there's positive changes and shifts, but I cannot stay silent when just such a vile act of terrorism has been committed by Israel and they're celebrating it, and the U.S. is trying to cover it up as if, oh, we had no idea that it happened, but it is Hezbollah, so we still have to understand that at least Hezbollah was infiltrated and attacked. No, absolutely not. If this happened in any other country, if Russia did this to Ukraine, you would hear it everywhere in the news how fucking evil Russia is. If this would happen to Americans by any country, we would demonize that country to no end. But yet, this is allowed to happen to a country where, yes, we're seeing another resistance group and we're deeming them as terrorists or whatever. If that's how America wants to go with it, fine. That's the enemy you're fighting. Cool. However, there was almost 3,000 plus, if not more, because there's more explosions as we speak, innocent civilians injured. And I'm not talking about injured they cut their arm or whatever. I mean limbs blown off, your eye blown off.
Severe burns.
Some of these people are injured, but most likely will probably perish or have zero quality of life after this. And, many still dead, and they're finding out more dead. The numbers are rising. This is not acceptable. This is disgusting. It's abhorrent. I don't want to know a person who even thinks this is remotely okay or tries to justify this. I don't want to know you. You're disgusting. You're vile if you support this. This should happen to no innocent walk of life ever. It shouldn't happen to no Jews. It should happen to no Palestinians, Lebanese, Americans, Iranians, Koreans, no one. This should happen to no one. And anyone who supports these types of acts of terrorism, the literal definition of terrorism, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're a brainwashed, indoctrinated, hateful bigot. And I think your life will be its own karma. Enough of being PC. I'm not finding peace anymore in talking any other way but the truth and being assertive and demanding about the truth, because that's the only way change is going to happen, is by not being fear-ridden by the system. I don't care anymore. Mm-hmm. I don't care. I'm an American and I have the right to speak and to use my voice to call out evils.
Well, this one's even more scary just because it all of a sudden introduces commonhold devices that, we all use, and all of a sudden it just shows the true evil out of everything, because any, you said before, any one of our devices could all of a sudden be next. Or what happens if all of a sudden, instead of selecting these devices here, we accidentally selected these also, and then they blow it up across the world.
Oops.
It's
the people that we watched in the last 5 years, because we know the government's watching everyone. I always talk to my FBI agent, watch me, look, I look at my phone all the time, my front camera, and I'm watch me. I have nothing to hide. I am a citizen who's calling out evil. I'm not part of any organization. I'm my own person, but I call out evils, and I always talk to my FBI agent. He watches me cry, he watches me laugh, he watches me get angry. I would like to believe it's funny, a fun way of laughing with it, even though it's still a sick, twisted idea that the government spies and watches us, because during the Patriot Act during 9/11, we gave up our entire rights because people were emotional and we were tricked, and we all know about 9/11, but I won't get into that. Because of that, though, to your point, I think people should be very scared in this country that you're not safe. And what's going to stop the government from blowing up old Joe in Wisconsin if Joe gets too hyped and says a little too much? And is becoming too much of a public figure in terms of resistance and going against the grain of the evil superpower that is our government and other governments, right? We have no indication or security of when this can happen. It can just happen whenever. And that's the scariest thing.
And there's not really anything that we can really do to prevent those type of attacks anyway, because we're so dependent on our technology anyway in the world that we live in today. So it's like even the microphone I'm talking through could, I don't know, somehow magically combust in some aspect. Like what I'm getting at is like there's nothing. I think it's more evident and more clear that it's more scary than ever because of these type of attacks.
Well, I think Israel put this out.
It's a giant eye opener it should be a giant eye opener for a lot of people because it shows really how much power they have over just simple day items.
Well, I think Israel doing this and choosing now to do it is every indication to the world that, hey, we've been always able to do this, as per them, claiming that they've had this operation in the works for many, many months, and they were just holding out on actually detonating or allowing whatever hackings to create these explosions. They've been holding off on doing this, which just goes to show that they can be holding off on so much more that we're not aware of.
Of course, and there's always more technology out there than what the
yeah, of course,
the
that
evil master reveals.
I'm saying that their willingness to escalate is more apparent than ever, and
because they're losing traction. They're trying to,
like every major empire that falls, they grasp to whatever power they can have before they fall, right? They commit the most amount of violence.
It's almost like an implosion is going on within
it itself. Is an implosion. Israel is very much Israeling itself in real time. And I say that because they're having like divisive riots within their own state,
which is also interesting because a lot of their own people in the riots that you just spoke of is like, the people of Israel also is protesting against their own government.
They're protesting against their own government. I won't give them too much credit. They're protesting against their own government because they want the hostages freed, which of course they should want the hostages freed. I want the hostages freed, of course.
But they just also probably
I also want the over 10,000 plus. I mean, numbers are probably way higher of Palestinian hostages. In fact, way before October 7th, there was thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of Palestinian hostages, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Palestinians abducted or killed. And, this was just basically a pressure cooker. And when October 7th happened, it was very much an act of resistance. And yes, unfortunately, some innocent lives died, but the majority of those innocent lives were also killed by Israel. And I'm talking about as in tanks destroying the kibbutz and Apache helicopters killing, running, civilian/soldiers. I'm going to say civilian/soldiers because there are technically soldiers celebrating like right outside of Gaza, which is really sick and twisted. And they were obviously not on active duty that day. But yes, the Apache helicopters were killing those Israeli civilians, quote unquote, running. And we saw it on video footage. I mean, this is something you can deny. So I think that there's a lot of awakening in Israel society against Netanyahu, but it doesn't take away the fact that Israeli society at large still does not want Palestinians, in Palestine. They want them very much out, whether it means ethnically cleansing them, genociding them, or occupying them. Overall, there's no real, crazy pushback on that. It's more so how Netanyahu's handling the war and how he's not prioritizing the hostages or prioritizing a ceasefire deal. So I don't want to give Israel too much credit. There is definitely good people and amongst every walk of life. Unfortunately, I would say that in Israel, the indoctrination goes deep, and anyone who speaks out against that regime, God bless you to the highest levels, because I can't even imagine what it feels like to be a person born into that indoctrination and being terrified by everyone throughout your society that is only one way. And you're just like, no, this doesn't make sense, with empathy and having a human heart and understanding what the moral system is. So God bless those people to the highest levels, truly, because I would be against any walk of life. I don't care. I don't care what my nationality, ethnicity, blood lies. I'm a human being. All of that stuff can be blended, mixed around throughout generations. It means nothing in the grand scheme of things. A moral system is the most important thing to be human. Okay. And that's what I lead with. So to summarize this rant, on my end at least, I would just say that for anyone who's still kind of on the fence about what to believe or what to think, this should be it for you. If this is not it for you, I think the only other way is that explosions have to happen in your front lawn, I guess, for you to be like, oh, it's actually right in front of my face now, not on my phone. Oh no, I can't turn away. It's my house is on fire. Like, I don't know what else will do it for you. Does your phone need to explode in your pocket? Because I think that's the worst thing and most terrifying thing, to like own any form of technology now that we know can just basically be infiltrated by Israel or any other governments they're working with to allow that to happen.
Yeah, whatever.
That's terrorism. That's terrorism. That's like equally as terrifying as a nuke flying over your head. In fact, I don't know. I think this is even more terrifying, because if a nuke flew over your head at this point, you just know that the world's coming to an end and you're going to die instantly. Having these explosions just go off on your face and your pocket, like...
Well, the article I read also was kind of titled, a new era of terrorism. I don't know exactly which article.
Technological warfare.
It's a whole different era. Like we thought about technological warfare as far as where all of a sudden they can shut down all of our devices and sever communication. But I don't think we ever thought about, devices blowing up. I think that there's a different... I
thought bio-warfare, which obviously happened during 2020 with COVID, I thought that was going to be more at the front and center. But I think that they're still perfecting that bioweapon. Let's just say that.
But also, technological, attacks are a little more personal. Not personal. That's a bad word to use there. But more like direct. Like everyone has them. Like even down to children and things like that. Where it's
a 10-year-old child was blown up by a device.
Yeah, and people in the market grabbing fruit from a little fruit stand or something is all of a sudden the pager in his pocket blows up and he falls to the ground. Like,
the argument that like these Zionists are making, like, who cares? Like Hezbollah was the ones that got affected by it. Like you have no humanity to understand, even if that was the case. Even if you were someone who was saying, you know what, I still support that, but I would have rather it been like when we know that all of Hezbollah was on the ground and they were actively fighting and the invasions were already happening. We were going back and forth and we were on the, all the soldiers were on the ground. Even if that was what you can justify, which is still disgusting and wrong, I would rather you have supported that version of it than just having basically it go off when people are just amongst society living and you had not a single care who they were around or where those explosives can have gone off. Like that to me mind blows me. That is so disgusting. Mm-hmm. That is satanic. That is like that's not just terrorism. That is like purely Satanism at that point. Like truly demonic shit.
Agreed.
Like, I don't know, dude. These stories, more and more evidence and more, I guess, information's coming out as the hours are going on. We'll learn more about the story, and we'll definitely be a little bit more up to date and talk more about these types of topics, because this is where my heart is at. This is where my head is at. This is where we're at. I mean, you can't really just talk about some topic now and be like, oh, this is great, and blah, 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 ignore it. This is happening in real life right now. We're on the brink of World War III. Okay, I thought this was going to be World War Me. Okay, but
no, that was with your nose.
That was with my nose. I know. I'm wearing the tape on my nose this time, and
World War nose,
the nasal retainer, because I took it off for the episode the other day, just because I felt like maybe I feel good about like having shown my new nose, but also being able to breathe would have felt nice. But honestly, there's a vulnerability just to showing like this is a reality. Like I have this fucking tape on my nose for another couple of weeks, and the nasal retainer I'll have to officially stop wearing it after the 3-month mark. But this is the process. This is the hell.
It's your nightmare.
This is the minor hell, because honestly I don't even feel good saying that. I have no real problems, right? The worst problem could happen to me and it's still like not a real problem when it comes to people living overseas. And I'm so humbled and grateful every day that I have this life that God has given me. I'm grateful that I have the willpower I have to still live. I'm grateful that I have people like you in my life. I'm grateful that I have life, right? I'm grateful that I have the ability to love.
And just the voice that we have, to being able to speak on this platform too.
As long as we still can.
Exactly. As long as we still can. We're going to continue to try to speak as much as we possibly have. And I mean, that's the piece I've met is that we're grateful for the voice that we have, not necessarily the platform.
Right. Yes, definitely. Because some people have really bad laryngitis and they can't speak, and I'm just kidding.
Everyone finds their voice in some form or fashion.
Yeah, some people just need a lozenge,
Some people just need a nice mint.
Anyways, guys, sending love, prayers to anyone and everyone. I pray every single day, almost every hour of the day, for just an end to this war, to end to all wars, and just a whole reform of our system here in America, and just hoping that the Green Party can prevail and the power of the people comes back, where we can actually just put an end to all things that don't benefit Americans and just help heal the world in whatever way we can. I'm praying for all innocent lives, both Palestinian, Jewish, Lebanese, everyone. Remember, we're all humans. Just remember to love each other, be kind. Don't feed into the propaganda machine. Try to find your humanity. Wake up.
Life is so precious.
Life is precious. Remember, just because you have life does not mean that it's not precious for other people.
Don't take it for granted either.
Yes. And just take a hit and just
be yourself.
Yeah. Take a hit and be open-minded to love. See you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.